All the blogs that I've written and put up on my website, perhaps the one that's garnered really the most interest of any of those that I've done is one that I did about abstract art, essentially about that kind of work that has no recognizable imagery in it whatsoever. And I think there are two things that perhaps are somewhat quizzical for people, somewhat something that they like to understand about abstraction. And I think one of those has to do with, why would somebody want to do this in the first place? Why would somebody want to make a painting that does not have anything that is recognizable in it? And the second thing is, I think people would like to know, what am I supposed to experience out of this? What kind of meaning should I be getting from what I'm looking at? Is there something that gives me something back in terms of what I'm looking at? And what is that something? Part of the reason that people have difficulty is because obviously there's no anchors there. There's nothing to tell a story. There isn't a figure, there isn't, let's say, a vase of flowers, a landscape with trees in it. The painting is totally devoid of anything that we can glean some direction to go in. And I think it makes it difficult for people. But there's two things that I want to say. Think of music first, and think of the kind of experience one gets from pure music itself, without lyrics. Abstraction is about taking things away. It's really about taking things out of the painting that the artist feels would get in the way of what they want to talk about. And frankly, all painting contains some kind of abstraction. All painters take things out. It may be not everything out like we're going to be talking about. This is what we're looking at now, is a drawing by Willem de Kooning, who is considered really to be one of the most important of the abstract expressionist artists that were part of that movement that took place in the 40s and 50s. It is a drawing of his wife, and I put it up there because I wanted it to display his sensitivity with a pencil and his academic training. But it also displays something more than just his skill in rendering a face. I want you to look at her dress and the hair, the edges on her hair and on her left hand, for example, and the shapes he picks out for us in what she is wearing. What we see on de Kooning's part is a deep interest and a pleasure in just the sensual beauty of these things alone, which he brings forward and makes visible for our enjoyment and his. What we're looking at now are two paintings also done by de Kooning. And what I have purposefully done on here is to split these things apart. And I did that for a reason, to be able to compare and contrast both of them and make the evidence of what he's up to a little bit more visible for you. And at the same time, you can begin, so that we can begin to see that growing infatuation with line and shape, surface and edges at the expense of a photographic image. The beauty of the human form is starting to have a priority now over the camera image. And looking now at the painting on the left, we have a complete abandonment of that recognizable figure in favor only of its shapes and edges. He has taken away or abstracted specifics to acknowledge the beauty of just those elements that form the human anatomy and can elicit pleasures as things in themselves. So these later works are not structuralist, but find their architecture in the beauty of human form and nature itself. By taking away, he has become a kind of specialist, a little bit like a surgeon. What we have is a good deal of depth without the breadth we might have if many more things were included that we could visibly see. Now we're looking at the painting in its completeness, and what he has created in this abstracted image is an opportunity for us to enjoy, if we care to, just pure shape, pattern, paint, line, and color as possible objects of beauty in themselves. Along with this, there is an aggressive style of painting to this, which gives a sense of movement to what we're looking at as well. Now, that's it. No deep-seating meaning, just those characteristics I have described, which we have the choice of finding pleasure in or not. Now, the next work, the one we're looking at now, is by Mark Rothko, who was a contemporary de Kooning. I selected this artist because, while like de Kooning, it is totally abstract, the visual conclusions the artist has come up with offers us an entirely different visual experience, and quite frankly, a different story. It illustrates how mere color, shape, and way of orchestrating edges and surface and visual weight of these different size shapes in tandem move us toward feeling a certain way. We are responding to how he has orchestrated these elements. For me personally, I liken it to an intimate mood, kind of being by myself, maybe like sitting by a fire with a good book, wrapped up in my own thoughts. It is experience without words. Comparing the two artists, we can witness how the very way of manipulating the vocabulary the artists use, once again line, color, shape, texture, and space, can deliver a meaning to us like music can. Devoid of literal references, these works display the abstract underpinning of all art, because all of it relies heavily for its experiential direction on the simple vocabulary the artist has to work with. And it's amazing how much can be done with really so little. I debated whether to look at another painting or not, but I felt that I wanted you to view one more example, because it's a kind of abstraction that is at such variance to what we have been looking at and talking about. This is a work by Piet Mondrian. It is devoid of any seeming emotion, and that's purposeful. By making pigment seem as though it is laid down by machine, all we become witness to is organization, balance of line, color, and shape. It is purposefully sterile to force us to think only of how relationships and imbalance can coexist. That's it, period. Now, with regard to abstraction, with regard to abstraction in general, whether the work is meaningful or enjoyable, that's up to you. But I do want to say it is no hierarchical privilege over other forms of painting. I hope this has given you some greater sense of what abstraction is really about and how it's generated and why it's generated. And I thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and if you care to visit my website at William Nichols Fine Art, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.